You are such a teenager. We've all heard it from parents, teachers, everyone. You are such a teenager. But did you know that not too long ago, teenagers helped save the world? Today, we're going to meet some of those teenagers and other everyday American heroes who helped change the world. And if you listen to what they have to say, maybe you will make some history too. But don't take my word for it. Why don't you talk to the people who were actually there?
I witnessed. I remember.
I witnessed. I remember. I hope you remember.
World War II. I witnessed it. I was there, and I remembered. And I'll try to tell you as much as I can about those memories.
World War II devastated half the globe. By late 1941, the Axis powers, led by Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan, had conquered much of Europe, North Africa, and East Asia, including many Pacific islands. Nazi Germany even had invaded its former ally, the Soviet Union.
England was having the dickens beat out of it. France was gone. Italy was in shambles. Civilization seemed to be on the line.
Then, on December 7th, 1941, the war and the world changed.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, World War II started when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. I lived in a little town of Chappaqua, Millwood, New York, and I had just been on my way to ice skating, and we heard about the bombing of Pearl Harbor at that time on a Sunday morning.
I was 16 when the war broke out, and it was on a Sunday, and I had just come out of a movie. And like everyone else, we didn't know where Pearl Harbor was, but we found out.
My stepdad was on a famous ship, the USS Oklahoma. Now, he was on that ship when it was bombed, and he went out through a porthole. He was shaving and he lathered himself and went through the porthole, got out. That's how he got out.
Walked in the front door from picking up some stuff out in the yard, and my dad was there listening to the radio and said they bombed Pearl Harbor. That night, he was guarding the Golden Gate Bridge. First unit called active duty. He was the State Guard. He commanded a State Guard company. And he was called active duty. That day, I didn't see him for a month.
Entering World War II transformed America and Americans. The United States sent hundreds of thousands of troops overseas, both to the European and Pacific theaters. Young men and women took up the challenge from coast to coast.
Well, I think it's duty and honor. Nobody likes war, but sometimes you have to do your job. In World War II, it was quite different from now. You know, everybody was involved in it. There were millions and millions of people in the service, and everybody hopefully was doing their job, and so were the people, the civilians at home.
Enlisted in the Army in 1943 when I graduated from high school. Never even signed up for the draft. I enlisted so fast.
So when I joined, I was in the first group of women who were enlisted as waves.
War breaks out in Europe. My father says, you know, you may have to go and fight. I said, that's all right. Time come. But meanwhile, Japan attacked us at Pearl Harbor. So I told my father, I said, Pop, I'm going to defend my country. I'm going to go in and defend us against the Japanese who bombed us. And that's how I enlisted into the Marine Corps when I turned 17.
I was commissioned in 1945, 19-year-old second lieutenant. And to understand World War II, there was segregation. The division which I went to was all black, except for two commanders, the division commander and his deputy. The rest of the people were black.
I had gone away to college, and I was in my first year, and originally the draft took men of 21 years and above, and there were so many physically unfit that they had to drop the draft age to 18 to get some healthy kids.
It was very exciting. I mean, if you didn't get killed or maimed, that period of time for all these young people coming out of the farms and businesses and garages and so forth, were going through a very exciting time in their lives.
In November 1942, U.S. troops joined other Allied countries in Operation Torch in an effort to liberate North Africa. Then, the Allies landed in Sicily in July of 1943, beginning a 2-year effort to liberate Italy, while Germany was losing its fight against the Soviet Union. Almost a year later, on D-Day, June 6, 1944, the Allies stormed the beaches of Normandy. This massive campaign, known as Operation Overlord, led to the liberation of France. Ultimately, American and Soviet troops met at the Elbe River in what is now the eastern part of Germany.
So the two of us are going across the Elbe. Well, I had no idea, but when I got to the other side, you would have thought that the captain and I had single-handedly won the war on the western side, because they started to celebrate us, they embraced us, they carried us around, and you couldn't imagine about my reception when I got across. Finally it dawned on me that the Russians had to fought their way all the way up to the river. They had to fight each way. While we were just driving, they were fighting up there. So when they saw us, they recognized we were the symbol. There were no more Germans in front of them. There were the Americans. We were the Americans. They had survived the war. That's what they were celebrating, their survival.
On May 8, 1945, Nazi Germany finally surrendered, but the war was not yet won. In the Pacific Theater, the United States had embarked on a campaign of island hopping in an effort to bring the war to Japan. In June 1942, at the tiny island of Midway, the U.S. Navy sunk 4 Japanese aircraft carriers in what became a pivotal American victory. After Midway, the U.S. Navy and Marines captured or bypassed one island after another on their way to Japan, and on July 26, 1945, the United States asked Japan to surrender or to face destruction. Japan refused.
Truman, I saluted him, dropped the A-bomb, not one, and I had to take 2 of them to convince the Japanese that it's time to surrender. They did, they surrendered.
Japan formally surrendered on September 2, 1945. Although it had cost more than 400,000 American lives, the Second World War was finally over. But the history of World War II is so much more than facts and dates.
Wars tend to be about statistics, body counts, body bags. But every single one of those people who was killed, their name.
And the story of World War II includes the names and stories of those millions of men and women who gave so much to make this world a better place. Together, they made history.
We did make history.
We did what was needed to be done to make the world a better place.
And so today, we are going to speak with some of those American heroes who should never be forgotten. Those everyday heroes who fought for their country or worked on the home front. The battles were crucial, but they were won because of the skills and values of the greatest generation. A generation that knew what was important and was willing to work together when it mattered. And what was important to these brave men and women? Their values.
You're as honest as you know how to be, and there's a very practical reason for that. Once you start lie, you can't keep track of them. I have enough trouble keeping track of the truth, but it's truth as best I know.
Integrity. And that, to me, is the most important. Anything because I want to be able to rely upon when one of my subordinate commanders say, we're at point A or point B, or I've done this or I've done that. I want to be able to rely upon that, because I'm going to have to take action based on what he tells me. If you have the same philosophy that I just mentioned going down throughout the entire leadership, with 3 divisions and all the soldiers, and they understand what you expect, and they understand what they can have from me, that there's no more important thing in what we're about in the military. So, responsibility, authority, loyalty, integrity, There's nothing more important than that.
Start shooting at you, you get really scared. And I was a 19-year-old kid, and I was getting shot at. You can't explain it. You don't have the experience. You've never been shot at, so you don't really know what it is, but you know you're scared to death.
Everyone's house had to be blacked out. The windows, they used black paper, and they had air raid wardens, you know, so that if there was any light showing, they'd knock on your door and stuff. And I was 10 now when this happened, but I grew up fast.
The first night of that was probably the scariest night I ever experienced, because nobody knew what was going on. Don't let any Germans come in. That was the instruction. No radios, a rifle. I did have a flashlight, but nobody told you really what to do.
And we had gone in on a mission, and we're coming home to land, and the Japanese attacked us as we were trying to land. So the only guns in the airplane were mine, my two, but the Japanese did not know that. And they came down to make an attack, and their normal procedure is to attack from below the airplane. And so when they dropped down, they dropped right in front of my guns. And so I was able to shoot the plane down and save the crew and get home and save the airplane.
There was a young girl. She was about 17, and we asked her, well, what are you doing out alone? And she was cute. So you're not very mean, you're being nice. And she said, I'm trying to scrounge up some food. We're hungry. And we interrogated a little more, find out she was Jewish. And she indicated that there was a Dutch lady who had sheltered her and another girl on one ration card for the bigger part of the war at that point. And whatever food we had, we gave her. And I went back to the headquarters and told the lieutenant about this Dutch lady and the two young girls that had been sheltered. And he said, we'll take care of her. We'll take care of her. And a number of days later, we took a trip back, and it was the address I can still remember. It's amazing. 49 Stadtwaldviertel in Cologne, and her name was Ellen. But anyway, we got to the house, and there's a big sign that said off limits. Off limits means no American was to cross that and do any business in there. So I immediately went back to the headquarters and got the lieutenant and said, what the heck is going on? Why is it no off limit sign? I said, I didn't know about an off limit sign either. Let's go and see what's going on. So with the lieutenant, we didn't mind going across the off limit sign. We got to them, and of course they said, oh, well, good to see you, and so forth. You know, we were, well, what's going on with this off limit sign? And the Dutch lady said, you know, what happened was, after you had left, trucks started to come with provisions, and more trucks and more provisions. We didn't know what to do. Our basement is full of all these provisions. But that's how Americans were when they found out something like that. Oh my goodness, they were as generous as they could be.
Well, I was chief clerk of the supply division. I was responsible for getting all the needs, ordnance, quartermaster, that the three armies needed. Not too important, but we had to keep the stuff going to them, you know. And some of the minor things, Christmas time, General Patton wanted a candy bar for all the Third Army troops. And there was as much a priority as getting the candy bar. I guess it was an O. Henry, I don't know what it was, but we had as much heat on us to get the candy bar as we were to get gasoline for the tanks.
you learn to respect your mother, your father, other people. It should be kind of automatic. Do we deserve respect by being a woman or by being a man? I don't know. I think you deserve because you're a person.
Good. Sugar was rationed, rice was rationed, but like I said, we were lucky. The military, when they broke up camp, we had quite a bit of food. And of course, she knew how to make soup out of nothing. And I mean, there were days that we just had soup.
And we wanted to go fishing, we'd take a couple hand grenades and see a fish, throw it into the fish pond, and boom, the fish would come floating to the top, and we'd have fresh fish.
Honesty, courage, generosity, responsibility for themselves and others, respect, and resourcefulness. These were the values that sustained the greatest generation. The generation that won the war. The generation that rebuilt Europe.
You came when you were needed. You had a specialty and you belonged to a group, and you go when they need you, you know.
We won the war by doing what was needed to be done. Hopefully we made the world a better place.
Oh, now it's time for you to go back into history.
So you all know why you're here. Congratulations, you've been drafted. And you're about to join the finest fighting force the world has ever seen, the U.S. Armed Forces. Now it's time for you to get to work.